When I was in high school, there was shows like Police 107 that was kind of popular at the time. And then, then came the stereotypes, Pacific people doing crime. This is the only show that we were on, and, we're always getting arrested, or there's someone drunk and fighting with the police. And I was a little bit upset about how they were portraying our people in a platform like television, because people suddenly thought we were all like that. And that was, for me, the changing point. I wanted to, I guess like the saying, be the change you want to see in the world. And that was, for me, the turning point. I wanted to be and help and promote our people.
Here we go. Kia ora, everybody. Oh, that's all right.
Oh, sorry, my friend.
No, you're right. You're right.
I'm so sorry. I went to turn on another light.
I'll ask you, can we leave that in? Because this makes it authentic. It's like the anti-TV show. We just happen to be on TV. John, I just want to thank you for taking time for us. I know that there's other recordings going on in your world right now, and we've carved out a little bit of time with you. And I'll tell you why it matters to me a lot, brother, is because this podcast airs at 11 o'clock at night. And I love the fact that it's the last thing people will see or hear before, they turn off audio on a TV and move on to something else. And it's quite fitting, I want to have these deep podcasts that release us a little bit from these confined areas we're in. So, I give you permission to relax, and we can undo a button or two and just enjoy ourselves. But I will say, man, thank you so much for joining me. And how are you? Is everything okay?
Malolele Nissan Pulavinaka, and kia ora tātou to all your viewers and listeners. It is, I'm so honored to be part of this podcast, and thank you so much for chasing me to be part of this. At first, I was a little bit hesitant. There were way better people than me, but the fact you've chosen me from, in case people are wondering, you also had The Rock, Dwayne Johnson on the list, but you chose me. So thank you so much. It's lovely to talk to you. Also to share a little bit about my journey. I'm so blessed to be doing what I'm doing as a reporter on Tagata Pasifika, and also an announcer on Radio 531. So service for me is what I'm doing at the moment, and I'm just very, very super lucky to serve an awesome community like our Pasifika community here in Aotearoa. But also what we're doing is being screened and broadcast around the world as well. So a big aloha, a big ta'alofa to all our viewers from around the world, our Pasifika people that are tuning in right now.
Beautiful, brother. Can I start, John, by, and we can travel a little bit back as we go, but in this current time, how are you balancing the information coming in, going out, this real-time stress that we all feel about it's not quite sure. We know we need to be together. We know we need to keep the narrative going to head towards the same direction, but it's blimmin' scary for a lot of our people out there. And I wonder, when the red light goes off and you find yourself having a quiet moment, are you able to kind of decompress, or does it sit with you?
Yeah, it's a lot of information to take in. We're in an age, we're a day and age now where communication is very much part of our everyday with the use of mobile devices and whatnot, and everyone can access, through Facebook and social media, for example. So there is a lot of information out there, and I think our people just need to be wise with what information they take in, because we've seen the impacts of the misinformation, and, it's causing more harm than anything and causing more panic in the community, and we don't want that. We're all very, I guess we're, there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of our people are not working, or some have been cut down their work hours. So it's impacting a lot of families. So it's a very sensitive time for our families. And if you're wondering, who should I listen to? You can also do your own homework as well. There's the COVID-19 website. You can go and look for yourself, talk to your doctor if you're really unsure about some of the issues, health symptoms and things like that, rather than just, reading everything you read online, because, it's like there are more broadcasters every day because everyone's online and, sharing stuff. But I just wish the people who are, making these false information can just please stop and be more wise with this influential platform that you have. You have social media, and use it wisely. It's really sad to hear how, it can really damage our community. And our communities are really vulnerable, with such things like the housing issues, education, equality, you name it. So, this is just adding more fuel to the fire if people are just generating the misinformation. So if you do get these misinformation, don't send it. Just leave it at that, delete it, unsee it, whatever you do, don't distribute it if you feel that it's not the right information. And you can always get the right information if you go to the correct source. A lot of people are, a bit more sensitive, or I guess a lot of them don't want to listen to the politicians, but maybe listen to the experts, the health experts, when it comes to COVID-19 and things like that. And if you are going through some tough times, please know that there are help. There are people out there that can help you. We've seen the good in people come out during these crisis times. I've done stories of people who have volunteered their time to go and put together food parcels, to go and help out the workers at the testing stations. It's things like that that really warms my heart and makes me feel good about the future of this country, that there is still a community that cares about one another. And when there's a stronger community, you just feel better about going forward, that I guess you're part of a community that looks out for each other. So that makes me comfortable, knowing that, we do still have good people in our community, even though there are the odd people who like to just make things a little bit more complicated.
That's right. And it's absolutely beautiful what you're saying, because it is tricky for people in real time, and we haven't quite worked out what's our role online. We have these giant kind of openings and views to the world, and it might feel right to be expressing, but I guess en masse and mix that in with a bit of an algorithm, it does get tricky. So I do like the fact, John, that there's some things that just are supposed to work, and hopefully if you can get around your family and be with each other in that safe bubble, pending, I guess everyone has a slightly different scenario, but there's some other communication that we miss online, the realness of being together. So, that's something that I think can help us navigate, because that's been one of the things that it's hard to navigate through this time. Should I be listening to this? We're on the campaign trail. Who's right? Who's wrong? And I just like the idea that sometimes you got to simplify it. It's about these simple conversations. How are you? Or not talking at all. Let's go for a little walk, or something like that.
Yeah, sometimes it's better just to switch off and have a COVID-free time, or just away from media and all the social media that's just, bombarding your mobile devices every day and daily. So it's nice just to have a little moment, have a breather, have family time. Because I think that's what COVID-19 and the lockdown has really brought out, is the importance of family coming together. The bubble was perfect for our Pasifika families, and I guess for every other Kiwi and New Zealander here in Aotearoa, was that it was about coming together and, just going back to traditional ways of getting in touch and talking to each other. It told us to, stay together in our bubble, and that was important because we didn't want to, I guess, spread or, I guess, get infected if we're out and about and mixing and mingling. So family is one thing that was really important in this fight against this pandemic, this health crisis that's happening around the world. So it really brought people together, and everyone I spoke to, they mentioned family time. It was so important. Families, the dads were not working, the mums were at home, and the kids, didn't have to school, and they were all helping each other at home. So it was more hands-on with things like that. So it was just really beautiful to hear stories of how, it's really united our community to work together.
That's right. It's not confusing, but at times it can be hard to, we've been given sometimes out of the toughness an opportunity to change the norm, and I know that's not simple for everybody because everyone's dealing with this in their own way, but I'd love to think that there might be a bit of a clue in there, but you got to also have enough time for family. And it just happens that, the Pacific this is huge in it, that's what the kind of Western society didn't take away, because you can't. Otherwise, that you can't call it a community if you can't actually commune, and so look, I think that's, well, John, and I guess before we go to the break, and maybe it's not the right question to ask before we do, but why is it that sometimes these harder moments in life bring out these good times? Why can't we just celebrate because it's a Monday? Why does it have to be during a worldwide pandemic?
I guess sometimes we just get caught up and, in this world that we live in, there are so many things happening. It's election time here in Aotearoa. There's so much to celebrate and things like that, and I guess, we get too busy. I also think that because we're in a digital age, we're just more concerned about, what photo I'm going to put up on social media and things like that. And I guess, you can tell real leadership when crisis hits. And it's been one of the highlights of seeing, our community heroes come out and really showcase themselves. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that we see the beauty in people even more when it comes to things like this. But I hope it stays forever, and I hope it influences our next generation as well to also act in that way rather than panicking and overreacting. So that's something that we don't want to happen. But it is beautiful how we've seen now. We may have the Marvel superheroes, but we also have our version of our Pacific heroes who are doing some awesome things. But they're not doing it to get recognition and things like that. That's just the Pacific way.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll take a quick break. Stay with us, everybody. Back with John. We're going to dig a bit deeper into, talk about Marvel superheroes. That's what happens when you're live on television. Stay with us, team. Back in just a sec. John, so where does it, how far do we go back? What do you want to be when you are a youngster? I mean, if you flick forward to these years, you have this role, the red light goes on, you're delivering to the nation. But when you're young, what's going through your mind? What are your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions?
Yeah, I was, still trying to figure that out myself. I was about 9 years old when I moved from Tonga to Aotearoa. So my father came to build a church on Whawhana Road here in Auckland in Mangere. So that's the reason why my family came over, was Dad's work. And, I was like, I was pretty average at music, and I wanted to be a musician. And I thought, yay, I'm a drummer. So I wanted to play drums and, travel the world as a musician and things like that. But there was something that I really found that I was really interested in, was that Pacific stories. I guess I'm an artistic person. I enjoy telling stories and I enjoy the performing arts. And when I was at Otahuhu College, a wonderful establishment, if I may add, in Otahuhu. So I was, when I got to high school, it was then I realized there was something missing in terms of the way we tell our stories. When I was in high school, there was shows like Police 10-7 that was kind of popular at the time. And then, then came the stereotypes, Pacific people doing crime. This is the only show that we were on, and, we're always getting arrested, or there's someone drunk and fighting with the police. And I was a little bit upset about how they were portraying our people in a platform like television, because people suddenly thought we were all like that. And that was, for me, the changing point. I wanted to, I guess like the saying, be the change you want to see in the world. And that was, for me, the turning point. I wanted to be and help and promote our people, because I grew up in a very, happy community where we're, yes, of course, we did have our downtimes, we had our issues, but most of the time we were proud of being Pacific. And our stories, a lot of us, it was just between us as Pasifika community, and I wanted to share that with the rest of Aotearoa. And at the time, Tagata Pasifika was the only program that was on television at the time, telling Pacific stories by Pacific people. And that was, for me, was a drawing card. And I caught the bug. I did some work experience at Tagata Pasifika at TVNZ, schoolboy from South Auckland in my short navy blue shorts and my tight shirt. I don't know why it was tight, but I guess it was for the looks, to show off my arms that didn't exist. My big, anyway, moving right along. But for me, that was when I caught the bug for the media industry, was that I saw Pasifika journalists telling Pacific stories. Yes, we did have to cover some sensitive and tough issues, but at the same time, this was the only program that was highlighting our success stories, helping preserve our culture here in Aotearoa. A lot of our communities are now calling Aotearoa home, and sometimes we kind of adopt new ways, and at the same time we don't use enough of our language to keep it thriving and alive here in this new place we call home. So fast forward, I did my time at AUT, my BCS, Bachelor of Communication Studies, 3 years, the longest time of my life. I didn't always enjoy reading, and especially because I was a natural Tongan speaker. It was another language, and reading and writing in English was a struggle for me, and I still struggle now with my England. So it is slowly getting there, I guess. But for me, I had to, do these things that I didn't obviously enjoy at first, but I had to do it because I wanted to become a journalist. So I did my time at AUT, as I mentioned, and then I went back to Tagata Pasifika. And then I said, look, I make an amazing cup of tea if you want me to come and join your staff. So I started off as a young intern, and then from there we had a spot that became open, and then I was lucky enough that I became a permanent staff. And fast forward, I've been here 10 years now with Tagata Pasifika. But it kind of started off, I wanted to be a muso and perform in bands, and then I saw the lack of positive and true reflection of our community in television, and that's what drew me to the only Pacific show at the time, which was Tagata Pasifika. And I tell you what, brother, it is honestly, I'm so blessed. I'm so honored to have met some incredible Pacific leaders, young and old. I've been able to travel to some awesome places I never, ever thought I'd ever go to, coming from, the Kingdom of Tonga. And here I am now. I'm just so thankful for the many opportunities, and also my family and friends who have been there from the very beginning and who keep me, keep my head in here, because sometimes I try and tell some dry jokes and no one laughs, but my family just keep it real. And I'm so blessed to have some good people. And I think that's one thing I also want to encourage our communities, that surround yourself with the right people. I was just really blessed, and I thank my God for taking me in the right pathway to meet some really incredible people. And they really helped me to get to where I am today, and I'll never forget. And that's one thing that always reminds me is, my beginning, always where I started and where I'm going. So that's one thing I would like to encourage our viewers as well, especially our young people who are trying to figure out what they want to do in life.
That's right.
Everyone has a story. Everyone has their own challenges and struggles as well. And but it's about going forward. And for me, it was wanting to do something different with my community. And I just very, very blessed.
John, you struck something in my mind as you were talking through your journey so far, and can you imagine what this would have been like going through a COVID? I think COVID has been a very adult game, if you know what I mean, with those of us who have gone through our childhoods and are able to access the world, maybe commerce and all these things, have been treating it like it's our thing to navigate through. But it's a real interesting point, right? Like, there's not much conversations about the little ones or the ones coming out of school and university. I mean, maybe this will give them some type of unification that the world is not always peachy or something like that. I mean, I guess we all knew that too, but I definitely remember thinking growing up that, it's kind of all going to be okay. And I guess I still believe that, but this shows you that things can change rapidly, and to be ready.
I absolutely agree. And this is something that we're so used to in the Pacific, is being prepared for the next cyclone. So this is something that our people have already been doing in the past, but I think it's a good exercise for us, you and I will, us young people, the rangatahi of Aotearoa, our generation to, think about the future. This is a good lesson for us to always be prepared. This COVID thing, it taught us about, getting some more water at home. People were fighting over toilet paper, tulo, and excuse me for talking about that. People were fighting over that, and I just thought, wow, never thought something like that will ever happen in my time. But it just goes to show, people just change when something like this happens. But for me, it was a huge lesson and a reminder of what we were used to in Tonga. So the cyclone season in Tonga starts from Christmas time until about, I think, March. I may be wrong, but our people already know what to do and prepare. So people are used to preparing for, when there's something, a natural disaster comes, and and I think we're in a day and age now where everything is perfect. What we see online is real life, but not all the time. Things can change. Mm-hmm. And I think, one of the things that it taught me was, to be prepared at home, and things like getting water, getting food, canned food, just prepare in case for the worst. So I think, that's one of the lessons my family and I learned when we went into the first lockdown, and then we were a little bit more prepared the second time round when we went into the second lockdown. But I just also would like to acknowledge our families out there who may not be in a position to prepare for these things. I'm thinking of you all, and I'm praying that everyone is okay. It is a tough time, and I've been doing stories about people who have lost their jobs, and it is very sad how I guess no one, planned for this. So no one knew what to prepare for when they're like, oh, you're not going to work here anymore. So yeah, it teaches us to always think of the future as well, being prepared. Yes. So, I guess that's one of the things I would take away from it.
Beautiful. John, we'll go to a quick break. I guess when we come back, I might just ask permission to ask you a question, and I can talk about it before the break. So sometimes I think what happens when we see you on screen, or like when I'm on a podcast, it's quite a good version of me, right? It's like a version I aspire to be. I use different vocabulary, and it just comes like I mold into this version of me. But I do like to acknowledge the fact that, just like you, we have life outside of this little square see us in. And I wonder if you might share just in the next segment, just a few little things you do to keep the engine flowing, to keep the brain happy, and maybe it's little silly things that we don't consider. But I think what we forget is that the people we aspire to be, they have obviously work hard is a big thing, but there might be some other things that just you happen to know or have learned. So maybe we could explore a little bit of that. And if not, then that's okay too, because that might be a secret. But stay with us, team. Cliffhanger here. It's all on you in the next segment, John.
I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm excited myself.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So, John, before the break, we talked, just a little bit, maybe it's around routines. What does a day look like for you, particularly on a busy day where there's a lot of pressure on, where you're going into the unknown? Do you have rituals that you follow?
Well, I work two jobs, and I'm very, very blessed to work on Tagata Pasifika and at Radio 531 as well. But I also add on other things like MC gigs. I do some voiceover stuff as well. So that's why I can't go to the gym. That's my excuse that I can't go to the gym because I'm too busy doing other things. But I still have my membership, by the way, just putting it out. I like to think of it. I keep the workers employed is why I guess for me, it's just juggling, because sometimes things can just, go a little bit longer with, with work. Sometimes the work hours are a little bit longer. It's never a 9 to 5, the work that we do, because sometimes things change, with news, it never sleeps, it just goes around the clock. But I'm really blessed to work in a place where family is still important to us as well. So I have my family time as well. And I know when work is, is my time with work. So I try not to mix too much because sometimes the work becomes part of my family time. And it's unfair for my family as well, if I'm kind of there, but I'm still kind of working. So I like to balance it is that, obviously when I finish my work, I have solely family time. I put my phone away just so I don't get interrupted, because sometimes I still get calls for stuff, for work, for TV and the radio, or there's a gig coming up for me to MC. So that's one thing that just keeps me together. I really love my family time, and with my fiance as well, she's always supporting me, and that's the thing as well, as having your support crew. My time with my family is very valuable to me because that keeps me going. Also, time away with my friends. I enjoy going for walks as well with my close friends, because it's just time to, I guess there's no camera around, there's no microphone, but it's nice just to have quality time. And you can discuss things, and, also have time to listen to others and, learn something new, because sometimes we get too bombarded with too many things. You don't get to think about things on your own. So that can get a little crazy if you can't manage it. And I think our people are strong enough. We know what's right from wrong, when we make daily decisions and things like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I try and do to keep me going every week. We pray every night with my family, my religious side as well. I still need to read more of the Bible, as my mother constantly reminds me. And she's very true. But my Christian faith is very important to me, my culture. Sometimes I just listen to classic Tongan string bands, that relaxes me. I do a bit of reading, whether it's the newspaper. Also, I read stuff online on the New Zealand media websites and things like that. So, yeah, it's just juggling and making sure that, what's your priority. Because sometimes, I tell you what, some weeks are long for me, because I'll have TV in the morning, and then radio overnight, and then something else the next day, and then when it was eligible, when I could travel, I would fly the next day or something like that. So it can get build up of so many things going on. But for me, I've had to learn to also say no.
Right.
Very tough for me. It's something that I had to do, because I love helping out. I love giving back to the community, but sometimes there was too much that I committed to, and I overcommitted. And what happens is, you start not offering your 100% here, and then you lag off here. And, I don't want to give, anything less than 100%. I always want to give my best to whatever project I work on. And for me, it was just learning to say no, because it was going to be for the better good. So that was, for me, was one of the things that I had to learn in life, was to say, I can't do it. I'm very, very sorry, but maybe next time. And it was tough, but at the same time, I've been presented with some awesome opportunities, and everything that I've been lucky enough to be blessed with. I've had to choose whether to do it or not, because sometimes I'm coming back to family. It might take me away from my family for too long, and you start missing home and things like that. But it's just a matter of juggling and measuring. Do you really have to do it? And I've had to learn to say no, especially now with, I have to think about my future with my fiance as well. I've got another half of me, so my better half, I should say. So I also have to have time with her as well. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always easy.
Well, look, I love how kind of real it all sounds, right? Because it might seem like a small thing, but it keeps appearing on this podcast, particularly when I speak to people who, let's say, in broadcasters, we like to make a quick story up about people that, they must have this and that and all. Yeah. And what I get a sense of is that, look, you're just trying to really, like everyone else, make it work in real time, find out how to, and you raise a really interesting point, how to say no. Because I was raised that if you said that, you would either get a clip or you'd be seen as being very rude. So unleashed into the world as us, adults, it's how do you navigate a world where you assign no to being rude? And you've obviously found your way to navigate that, but I don't remember anyone ever mentoring me with that. And do you think it's something that you just have to learn as you go, like being able to say no?
Yeah, because otherwise your plate's going to be too full, nothing wrong with that, by the way. I've also had to say no to the All Blacks and GQ magazine, but hey, look, no, I'm kidding. Sometimes you just have to know when your plate's too full, when you know of your your capability of being able to perform and help these people, because a lot of the time, it's also the time factor as well, because it's just one thing after the other, and then I guess it's too much for you, the energy, and then I've gotten into that position where it's just way too much, and I've had to learn to also give it to someone else to do if I can't do it myself. But it's a lesson that it took me a while to get used to. It's not always easy, I feel terrible, but it's something that I've learned to say when I know that I really can't do it. It's the last option in my list. It's always on, maybe I can do it, but no, I just have to be wise with my time as well. I have to think of, my family, my energy as well, because otherwise I'm going to be burnt out. I only ever get to have a rest on, one day a week kind of thing. And, I think it's you're working smarter, with your time. And, it just means that, you're going to miss out on some things, but, there will be many more blessings down the line.
That's it. So, John, we'll just go to our last little break. And I guess when we come back, there's a couple of things that I'd like to maybe just explore with the limited time. I guess I should also say thank you to saying yes for us and coming for this, because I always acknowledge it, that people are like, how do you find your guests? And how do you, I'm like, well, you just ask nicely and hopefully they reply. And if people don't reply, that's a nice no in some ways. But it's a couple.
You said there's a feed afterwards, so that's what
that's it. Sorry, you're breaking up. Oh no, we're definitely, yeah. So I guess when we come back, it's something around kind of like, do you ever think about, with the current stuff you do, what the plan was for our ancestors back in the day? Do you feel like, kind of strategy wise, in terms of our exploration? One of the things that fuels me is this idea that I come from a long line of people who explored. And I don't like the idea that sometimes we're told what we can be. I want to be able to keep adapting, all the way down to, if you really listen to COVID, it attacked your weaknesses around your immune system, and if your immune system builds by giving it a variety of challenges, and we're built for variety, and it's like we have that tension of stability as well, which those two things, I feel like they wrestle each other. So I'd be keen to explore, like, what did your family do way back in the day, and are you kind of breaking the norm with the career choices you have made, or following this line, just so people can maybe think, what did my family do, and then from there, I guess, just explore a little bit about how do you think we'll remember this time? It's a really interesting prospect to think that we're archiving our conversation now, but 20 years from now, I wonder what people will think. So anyway, there's a bit there. Stay with us, John. Stay with us, everybody. Be back in just one take. Okay, John, here we go. So we're coming in for our little landing here. We're seeing shore, we're sailing towards it. And like I will say, man, it's been nice to, that's the thing about people you've watched a lot on different mediums, is everyone feels like they know you. But for you, you're just like, whoa, hold on a minute. I've only just met you.
It's funny that, I go to my local food court in Otahuhu, and people are saying, hey, the awesome work on this. And I just love it. I just feel so blessed that I'm part of a community program like the Tagata Pasifika movement, that people feel like they know you. So I tell you what, my partner's used to it now when we go places and people are coming up to say hello and commenting on which story that I worked on. It's just awesome. And I love that. I love the feedback. And I also love people's honesty as well. When they feel where we didn't do a good job of this interview, they tell us, which is the Pacific way. You just got to tell them the truth, eh? And I got home and I'm crying on my way home.
Tears of joy.
Yeah, that's right.
John, you interview a lot of people, you see a lot of scenarios, you intertwine with, it's a little bit like a podcast. You have a little hack to find your way into other people's scenarios, which is one of the blessings I have from this is I get to look outside the bubble, I guess, sometimes. Have you seen any similarities? And I guess what I mean by that is in this podcast, there's a huge sense of hope that comes through from a variety of different backgrounds. I speak to people who believe in, something greater than themselves. I also speak to people who just think it's, that we're random atoms hitting each other. But there's something in the middle that if you're really listening, people are talking about meaning. And it's quite interesting to try and unpack what is it we're talking about. Why does it feel like there's a big plan, but sometimes it feels like there's no plan, because those things happen simultaneous. Have you noticed any similarities or through lines, things that keep coming through whenever you meet people from all the years you've done this?
Yeah, as I mentioned, working for Tagata Pasifika and then also working on Radio 531 PI's PM Tonga, the Tongan language program, we are so blessed, I tell you, Will. We get to hear people's stories and we go into people's lives and share a little bit about their stories with everyone else using radio and television. And I tell you what, one of the things that makes me proud and mawhana, really warm inside as a Pacific person, is our sense of whainga. We call it in Tongan, but I could translate it's like we're always trying. We came to New Zealand. Obviously, the story goes, we came for a better future. And I tell you what, even seeing our people today, that hasn't stopped. I've interviewed people who have, repeated, year 5, year 6 so many times, and that person is now a professor, a scientist at Fonterra. I met a lady the other day who injured herself. She's now a paraplegic. She's still using her ability to teach others. She's a PT. She's in a wheelchair. So we're not letting things stop us. There are many barriers, in life. And I guess, whether it's a physical one or, if something to do with the way we live at home, the house we're in. But people don't let that, stop our spirit. And, the way we try and achieve things. We are so, I guess, blessed because we come from a long line of ancestors who were great explorers, navigators. We've all heard the stories, and I think that's still happening today with the stories that we hear of our community, never stopping the sense of, achieving, whether it's, we've had stories of the first female judge in Samoa, here in Aotearoa, first Tongan judge. There's going to be plenty more firsts to come in our community, and that's just so inspiring for our next generation as well to see that, yeah, I can do that too. Because some people think, I guess, when they are stuck in that bubble, like for me, I can speak for my community in South Auckland, when people tell you, oh, you can only work at this place and that's it. No, that's not the way. You can achieve more. Once you burst that bubble, you can also, when it's safe to burst that bubble, if it's COVID restricted, but metaphorically speaking, people need to come out of their shell and, say to yourself, I can do this. Because sometimes we're held back. We've got the mentality. We've got the inside us, we're warriors. It helps us, when the time comes, when we're studying for whatever. And, just using Tongans as an example of, the most PhD per capita, our people, we come from a small island. We don't have much resource-wise. We come here and we come with this, but also with our heart. We never let, I guess, the many barriers that we face, whether it's, we can't afford to go into this really expensive school or things like that. Our people are in different parts of society now. And I want to acknowledge our ancestors and also our kāinga who have done the hard work for us. I want to say to our people, look, we don't have to struggle as much as our parents did. I'm so blessed because we're going to get a bit emotional here. I'm so blessed because our families have done the hard yards for us, so you and I can have a better future. And I'm so blessed that I can go to certain places and certain things because my parents worked hard for you and I to get there. And that's one thing I want to remind our people is that you're at a very, very blessed and I guess privileged position where you're at the moment. We are so lucky. We grow up, I guess the young generation today, we have all the nice things. Our people had to do some of the hardest jobs, the jobs that no one else wanted to do, because they didn't want to do it, but they did it because they cared about us. And, whatever the family dynamics is, just know that, you're surrounded by some good people. I know our families as well. We have some very tough issues we face as families, but overall, I think we must acknowledge those who have done the hard work for us. I know it was tough, back in the day with the dawn raids, with the overstays and things like that. But, our people worked for it. Our families worked to be here, and we're contributing to New Zealand. And don't forget that you also have a right to be here too. You're part of this big multicultural community called Aotearoa New Zealand. And we're very blessed to be part of this nation where we have our own schools, we have our churches here. We can also celebrate our language and not be afraid. Our parents were in a time where they couldn't speak their languages, and it was frowned upon if you spoke your native tongue. We are encouraged to use our languages now, and, don't be afraid of that. When I was growing up, there's a fob, someone who speaks of broken English, but I tell you what, it is so beautiful, Will, when you converse with young Tongans, Samoans, Fijians, Niueans, Cook Islanders, and you hear them speak in their reo. It is so beautiful. And I encourage our families, keep doing it at home, because that's the first classroom. You start in your living room, your lounge, use the language, talk to your kāinga, your whānau, hainga, vovale, in your languages. You just never know how far that will go, because they will see that as a normal a way of speaking to each other. And once that is normal, everything else will fall into place, and that will help us going forward. I've been to communities, Will, smaller communities where a lot of them have migrated because of the impacts of climate change. We're lucky in the major islands like Tonga that we're still okay at the moment, but it is so sad that, they're losing their land. And imagine if they don't have their language, they also lose their identity as well. And that's one thing I also want to remind the viewers that are still joining us, and thank you for staying with us, the importance of holding on to your culture. They say in Māori, it's like our taonga. And this is our treasure, our mea sina, that we're going to take forward for the next generation. And once we do that, we'll see it as the norms, and then that will just continue and continue. And we don't have to worry about a language or a community or people that that will disappear if we keep doing the great work that we're doing at the moment.
Absolutely beautiful. And I had a moment today speaking to a Fijian colleague, and he was explaining to me, with the Fijian language week and the type we're recording this, that they don't have a word for cousin. You're either a brother or a sister. And I thought that was really interesting, because it's like more bandwidth than English gives it sometimes.
Yes.
We define things in English and we can tell you, but it's like these are the other things we're not realizing, that when you forget a language, you forget other meanings. And that explains a lot why Pacific doesn't just draw the line, because you can't do a brother or sister, and people can understand that, but they need to know. They need to know. And so it's one of my journeys through Cook Island is to rediscover that, as a 40-year-old man now, having to now acknowledge that, hold on, there's 50% of me that was dormant.
Yeah.
And this is the journey, but we all have a chance, right, in this world to find that. So it's something quite beautiful. Our final question, John, is, as I get nervous when I head into these podcasts, is there any guests you've had over the years that have made you kind of get the butterflies, or do you go into a zone where you're just like, no, it's time to deliver?
It's been awesome. We get the access to places. I've met world leaders, the Pacific leaders, been able to, as I mentioned earlier, travel to some really awesome places. And I'm pinching myself. I'm like, I can't believe I'm here right now. But, meeting the famous people, it's fantastic, the sports stars and things like that. But it's the community heroes that still, leave a everlasting memory with me. It's because they're just really awesome people, and I always reflect back to the COVID time on meeting families who have come together. So I was out in Otara with a group who come together. They've got some funding from the government to put together food parcels to help the elderly. And I thought, man, that is so cool, because this is the Pacific way. We always look after the elders, with respect to them. And we're in New Zealand, and COVID will never stop that. COVID will never stop our Pacific way and the way we look after each other. And I thought that was really cool. And, one of the families was mum, dad, and the kids all came and all dressed with their masks and whatnot. And they're volunteers. And I just thought, man, this is so awesome. When you meet people like that, that's fantastic. Because you see, I guess, there's the sense of they still have that love and community. And that's one thing that COVID or any health crisis will ever take away from our people. That's a human thing that'll always be in us, is that we always have that sense of looking after one another. And for me, that speaks more volume to me, and I mean, with all respect to everyone else that I've met, some awesome people, but I think it's the people, the unknown people that no one will know about, because they just get the work done without asking for a special recognition. They may not wear a cape or dress up in their superhero costumes, but for me, I take my hat off to those people as well. Yeah. Beautiful.
What about your family, your parents? They proud of their boy? I mean, do they get time to sit down with you and celebrate the wins as they happen?
Oh, thank you so much, brother, for asking that. Absolutely. So my father passed away a few years ago, but my mother is still here, and I'm so blessed to have her here. It's good to have her wisdom to remind me of things, because, like everyone else, sometimes I get too busy with too many things, but Mum's always there to remind me about what's important. Our God is important to us and our family, and, his teachings, but also, having my partner as well. She always reminds me. She's I guess, my second voice that's always there when I'm trying to make decisions, and she's a huge help in terms of me and my career. But having good friends as well, is another good thing as well that's helped me to get to where I am, and I'll always remember them. And I encourage people to surround yourself with the right people. I've had time to reach out to some of my own relatives who I know who are kind of on the brink of, doing something that they'll regret later. And we do our bit to reach out to us as well. So it is important to also share that love as well to people who who are going through tough times. And I encourage people to reach out and check in on each other. I know that coming into mental health, it's quite an important thing now, with families impacted by COVID-19 and other issues as well. Some people are having a little bit of, it's a sad time for some people out there. So do your bit to give back and reach out to others. But my family's well. To answer you, sorry, to give you that 1 hour answer. But my family are definitely well, and we can't wait to go back to the islands one day and visit the rest of our kāinga who are back home in Tonga, but also see others, in Australia and other parts of the world. So when that happens, we look forward to it.
Absolutely beautiful. Look, John, you kind of like raised something for me to end on, which is, I guess you mentioned mental health, and sometimes what I quite like about what we're doing right now is we're just talking, right? And if people don't feel like talking, they don't know what to say, they can sometimes just sit back and listen. And this is an interesting little, it's like I imagine sitting around a campfire. Sometimes it's just nice to look at something else and not have to think about the pressure of the world. So, there's lots of little nuggets that you've delivered all the way through that I think help us ignite that flame, because that's what I'm really trying to do, is trying to find these things that you can't touch, you can't feel, but you take it and it helps you, like a bit of an energy. And my fingers are crossed that this happens through the internet too, that it's not just in real life where you can be inspired, but if it just happens to be on a good frequency, that person listening right now can take what they need from John Pulu, and they can say, great, or they can reconfirm an idea, or they can say, hey, I disagree with that, but at the end of the day, we're doing something. And so, anyways, brother, I want to thank you for taking an hour of your time out to give to us. It's an awesome service. And well, let's wrap it there. Normally I plug the guest, but John, they just got to turn on the TV or the radio and they know where to find you. Actually, you don't need more people to find you, but so no plugging for you. You're okay. Well, in terms of plugging, is there someone in the community that someone should be aware of? Is there a couple groups you might highlight for us if we're going to go in like a Facebook page? Who's 2 or 3 people that you've come across lately?
Yeah, just some of the organizations that comes to mind. There's Siaola, Siaola, for our Tongan community. They're fantastic. Also, there's another group, the Fono, here in different parts of Auckland. It's a health provider, but they have also been handing out food parcels. I'd also like to acknowledge Sir Michael Jones and Lady Maliana, who have been doing their part to give back with their incredible food bank, which is feeding so many people during this very sad time as well. So some of those community organizations, a lot of our church groups have said, look, we're going to help out as well. And it's so awesome to see our church members and church leaders, put their hand up and say, look, we can help out as well. Instead of just sitting back, some people are afraid of standing up and saying, I can help. But it's been awesome to see some of our community church leaders, stand together and unite against COVID-19. No one knows how long this will be, and I'm praying that, hopefully, we get to see the rest of our families outside of Aotearoa very soon and going back to a new normal. But I just want to say, before we wrap up, malo apito, vinaka vakalevu to you, Will, and your team for this opportunity. I'm very, very honored to be part of this program, and I'd like to say a big thank you to all your viewers and everyone out there who might be listening or tuning in from different parts of Aotearoa and the world as well. Thank you for supporting Tagata Pasifika and also Radio 531. And me, this random guy from Otahuhu, originally from Tonga, and I'm still here to help and serve you, my beautiful community, and I wish you all a very, very prosperous Christmas break if I don't see you, and a wonderful new year, and I hope that one day I'll get to meet all of you very soon, but for now, malo apito and vinaka vakalevu.